My skin was so good for a few months, in fact for most of spring and summer, until recently when I started breaking out. But why? Nothing has quite changed. I've been religious with my skincare, I switch out my pillowcase frequently, and sure, I've been treating myself with some more sugar lately, like a lot more. At least a chocolate bar a day, and yesterday I had cake, and I've been adding cocoa nips to my oatmeal almost every morning, treating myself. I've deserved it, right? After a long day of work, or because why not live a little? Even though I've always said that people who say live a little are often people who don't want to be alone, and they're often bad decisions. But is it really treating myself if the long-term consequences of continuous chocolate, as an example, indulgence, are things like cavities and bad skin, even if it feels so good in the moment? Self-indulgence, the act of allowing yourself to have or do things that you enjoy very much. I used to view self-care as that, treating myself. So Netflix after a long day, or snacks, or face masks that don't do anything, or ignoring text because I was on me time. Things that felt good in the moment. You deserve some ice cream, you deserve to sleep in, you deserve some takeout. But what does deserve even mean? Does deserve mean feeling good in the moment, even if I will likely not be left feeling fuller, happier, or better in any way as soon as the rush of the moment wears off? Once in a blue moon, definitely. I'm not against giving into desires ever, but how frequently is too frequently? The way I see it, self-indulgence is often a temporary way of soothing a different need that is not being met. And if I find myself wanting to regularly indulge in temporary satisfaction, I know that there is an itch somewhere in my life waiting to be scratched. And that itch is rarely something Instagrammable like putting on a face mask. Food cravings, for example, can be a sign of nutrient-poor diet, lack of sleep, or stress. Would self-care then be to order whatever we want and mindlessly consuming what our body is not very happy to receive? Or is self-care then to examine potential causes, even if that process may be boring and way less sexy? How often is it okay to let ourselves sleep in or stay in bed all day because we feel like it, versus picking ourselves up even on a slow or perhaps bad day and going for a walk even when we don't feel like it? Always doing what we feel like, which is what I believe is being heavily promoted in the self-care movement that we see on social media, is like giving a child everything that they point at. I don't have any human babies of my own, but I know how important it is to say no, to protect them from harm, to help them develop patience and values and a healthy attitude, even if that no leads to the child experiencing uncomfortable emotions like sadness or, disappointment. Because we know that what we're teaching them is what's going to benefit them more in the long run, which is more important than always satisfying their immediate needs. Now, I haven't looked into this a whole lot, but I just don't really think that we are much different from children. It's not like we stop being impacted by our decisions just because we grow a few inches and hopefully get a bit wiser. So we shouldn't stop nurturing our future self. When I say I love myself, I don't mean that I will give myself everything that I point at. That's not love. It means that I will try to learn to redirect myself, because I know that that is what's best for me. To say things like, I know you feel like staying in bed today too, but I care about your health, and so we're going on a walk instead. Breaks are necessary. We need to wind down from time to time, but I know that it's been a slippery slope for me personally, as it can easily go from, I'll just take a 15-minute break, to, I'm taking a 2-hour break, but what I'm actually doing is avoiding this task that has a deadline later today. Taking a bath or watching an episode of your favorite show is obviously fine, but it shouldn't be a way of neglecting responsibilities in the name of self-care. Just like how buying a new bag whenever I feel down is not self-care, or how emptying a bag of candy whenever I'm stressed is not self-care. Once in a blue moon, yes. Frequently, no. Unless I'm on vacation, or unless I'm depressed and I need to get professional help. Neglecting my duties and day-to-day responsibilities to do what is not essential, in my opinion, is a form of self-harm, because I'm just giving future me more stress. There are so many things that I've watched other people do or have, thinking, damn, I wish I could do that or be that. And one of those things was having my own class on Skillshare, who is sponsoring us today. Skillshare is an online learning community with thousands of inspiring and creative classes for anyone who loves learning. I took class on Skillshare for years until about a year and a half ago, and I was like, wait, why don't I create my own class? You know, all these other people are doing it. Why not me? And so I did, and it took me over a year to perfect it, but it finally went live a few weeks ago, and I couldn't be happier with how it turned out. My class is called Memoir Journaling, Make Your Life Richer Through Stories, and I can't wait for all of you to take this class. It's gotten such positive reviews so far, and it makes me so happy when all of you write to me saying how much you enjoyed the class. I have been journaling for over 17 years, and it's been an incredibly valuable habit and journey, and it's just been so exciting to be able to share some of that magic with all of you in this class. You can take my class or any class on Skillshare for completely free, because right now Skillshare will give you a 30-day free trial if you use the link in my description box. There's no commitment, you have nothing to lose, but so much value to gain. I know I have, so check it out, and thank you so much for your support. So I did a Q&A on my Instagram recently, which I do sometimes, and I was asked the question, how do I accept acne and body weight? And I wrote quite a long answer, and I said, I try to accept what I can't change, and I don't accept what I can't change. I'm currently having pretty bad skin, and I think it's because I've been eating a lot of dairy and sugar lately, something that's totally in my control. I don't believe in talking yourself into accepting something that is actually not making you feel good about yourself and that you have the power to change. For example, I personally feel a lot better about myself when my skin is clear and radiant, and I see no point in trying to convince myself otherwise when it's obviously not true. I personally don't think it's helpful telling someone they're beautiful just the way they are if they're obviously suffering because of it. I'd rather try to give them advice on how they can fix or change whatever they're dealing with. I value solutions more than validation. Obviously, our love for ourselves should not depend on how we look, how much we weigh, etc. I, of course, don't love myself any less when I have breakouts, but we should also strive to truthfully feel good in our own skin. Now, while statements like, always love yourself no matter what, and you are already perfect are obviously well-intended, I think it's good to be mindful of how we use such statements, as it may discourage us from trying to learn or change things that aren't doing us any good. There's no doubt that self-criticism can become a source of unhappiness for some people, but it doesn't need to be. Healthy criticism is not based on self-hate. It is simply honestly acknowledging a part of ourselves that we feel is not living up to the standard that we know would make us or our lives better. Does anyone else feel like self-care has become synonymous with cutting people off at the slightest inconvenience? That's at least the impression that social media is giving me. There's specifically this side to TikTok that encourages people to basically never give others second chances, signs to look for in bad friends, and how we should drop everyone like a hot potato if they don't live up to all of our expectations. Self-care is very much knowing when to say goodbye, but it's also learning important skills such as conflict resolution and patience and negotiation and effective communication. It's learning to nurture our relationships. Now, am I saying that we should keep people in our lives that do us harm and wreck our mental health? Of course not. Who we surround ourselves with is utterly important for our mental health and our quality of life. But whatever happened to hearing people out? To acknowledging that we all come from different backgrounds with our own stories, and that understanding each other takes time, that expecting people in our lives to get things right every time is unfair. A friend is not toxic just because they talk a lot about themselves. A partner is not wrong for you just because they don't compliment you every day. It's like we don't want to put in the work. We want everything to go seamlessly, because if it doesn't, it's not right for us and something better will come along. And sure, maybe, but if TikTok is your Bible of choice, you will likely end up very alone, very resentful, very fast, I think. But what do I know? Just overall, I think this whole emphasis on self neglects our very basic human need, which is community. Words like self-love, self-sufficiency, and self-reliance, well-intended, but the emphasis on how we should not need anyone. We pride ourselves in our independence because craving community and human connection must be a sign that we don't truly love ourselves, or that we don't truly love ourselves enough. Because loving yourself enough should mean that you're completely full and happy on your own, right? From an evolutionary standpoint though, not really. No, we're pack animals. It's natural to want and need people, to want support, to want help, to want validation. No face masks or cups of tea in solitude will replace the need for someone to share those moments with. And by the way, I don't have a beef with face masks. I think they're quite nice, actually. It's just the first thing that comes to mind when I think of social media self-help trend.